So, Young Turks were bashing Neil Cavuto for mentioning that the housing crisis has been caused by lending to minorities. Uh, but that's not exactly what Cavuto said. Cavuto said that the Community Reinvestment Act forced banks to lend uh, in minority areas to uh, home buyers or potential home buyers who had less than who didn't have strong credit histories. And the reason the minorities came into it is because it was minority activist group that began to pressure Congress to enact this law because they perceived there to be a discrepancy in the amount of loans that the black community was receiving versus those that the white community were receiving. And they approached Congress about this specifically to address racial discrimination. So that's why the racial issue is brought into it. Not because Neil Cavuto is trying to be racist, but because that's why the act was lobbied before Congress. That's what brought this before Congress is the minority community activist groups that were claiming racism and discrimination by the banks. So what Cavuto is doing is addressing the heart of the issue. He's not off on some racist rant. So this video is going to have to take two entries I can already see, or a related entry. This is basically, I'm just going to read two opposing viewpoints and let you make your decision. This is called the Equity Blog, imagine that, and the title is Scapegoating the Economic Crisis. They mentioned at the beginning of the article how they have a page that briefly summarizes different legislations that they believe that is important to their community, and one of the summarizations summarizes the Community Reinvestment Act. They note that their page summarizing the Community Reinvestment Act has received much more traffic since the recent downturn in the housing markets. And after they lament the fact that it's been picked up by some conservative entities, they go into a little bit of explanation here. It says the CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, was passed in 1977 to counter proven and pervasive racial discrimination by banks and savings and loans. It addressed unfair and widespread practices of denying creditworthy customers of color, particularly African Americans and Latinos, access to standard loans and mortgages. Okay, this is a minority group. This is a minority group. And they're saying this was to counter the pervasive racial discrimination by banks and savings and loans. It addressed unfair and widespread practices of denying credit-worthy customers of color, particularly African Americans and Latinos, access to standard loans and mortgages. Okay? So that's them admitting that this was a racial issue. Now it's funny that they say particularly African Americans and Latinos because banks, for some reason, lend to Asians at a higher rate than they lend to whites. So I wonder if the whites have a case of discrimination by the Asians, but we'll get to that later. The CRA was a remarkable success, sending home ownership rates among people of color to unparalleled heights and helping usher in a black and Latino middle class that is essential to America's economic future. However, as the nation's housing market flew closer and closer to the sun, this is the old theory of people building themselves up until they get to the sun and then burn themselves out. This is, of course, their view of capitalism. Enforcement of the CRA has actually decreased. Contrary to what CRA critics espouse, the CRA did not force these loans of lenders. The CRA became law in '77, and the subprime loans that got us into this current crisis started being issued en masse in 2003. As financial institutions' desire for accelerated profits and revenue streams grew, necessary regulation did not follow. The strength of the CRA was weakened in '99, and I'm paraphrasing, when financial legislation allowed investment and security firms to enter the mortgage world. Prior to these changes, the home mortgage industry was fairly simple. Okay, and it explains what happened. How loans and secondary loan market works. After the 1999 legislation allowed other types of financial institutions to issue mortgages, it goes on blathering here. It says it began to include 20 different types of entities that could purchase, repackage, and securitize loans. Brokers for these loans became free agents to recruit these loans for players that made money on high-fee interest transactions. The massive web of financial entities offering, bundling, and trading of mortgages was not covered by the CRA. Oh, so if only we would have had more coverage by the CRA. Wonderful. The vast majority of the subprime loans causing today's massive foreclosure were issued by institutions not covered by the CRA. And this is going to take more than one time. But isn't that kind of the point? Isn't that kind of the point that you have this CRA forcing people to do business a certain way within the umbrella of the CRA? And is it any surprise that the players in that business fled out from underneath the web of the CRA? Why is that a surprise? Why not lift the CRA, get rid of the CRA, and allow the majority of business to come back into that field that had been covered by the CRA? I made this point in another video. The regulation of the CRA and other regulations forced a flight of the financial institutions from underneath the products that were regulated by the CRA, which were more stable products. See, they regulated the basic product. And so it's no surprise that the lenders fled out from underneath that. But these guys don't get it. If only the CRA would have had more coverage. These loans were made by banks and institutions not covered by the CRA. Watchdog group Media Matters, oh, we love those guys, notes that in the 15 most populous metropolitan areas, 84% of the high-cost loans in '06 were made by financial institutions not governed by the CRA. Oh, and then President and CEO of Federal Bank of San Francisco, we love that institution, said in a March speech, oh, of course, the Fed loves this CRA Act. Studies have shown that the CRA has increased the volume of responsible lending to low and moderate income households. Of course, the CRA did nothing of such. That happened on its own, despite the CRA. Rather than having the government enforcing a banking regime that is fair and just to all people. Oh, see, it's the government's job to provide a banking regime that is fair and just to all people. As the CRA intended, lawmakers abdicated their responsibilities by not regulating the new players and let the market run roughshod. Oh, we're victims. We're such victims. Poor little old me. Over millions of low-income Americans simply yearning for the dream of home ownership. I'm not making this up, y'all. The CRA required meeting community credit needs across banks and markets, not predatory lending across the vast opaque network of lending, trading, and securitization of institutions. Uneven and non-existent regulation became the tragic accelerant. Trying to blame CRA and hard-working, low-income Americans for an economic crisis that began in smoky Wall Street acronyms is not only factually but morally wrong. The CRA is good and continuing to push towards an America that offers equal, just, and fair opportunity for all people. Watch the next video.